I'm David Heitler-Clevens.
And I'm Rodney Wittenberg. And this is Music for the New Revolution.
You will not be able...
Hallelujah, 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 hallelujah.
Praise the Lord and pass the ammunition.
It wasn't God who made honky-tonk angels.
May the Lord protect and defend you.
My sweet Lord.
I am the God of hellfire.
Holy Moses. Losing my religion.
Namaste, David.
So today we tackle some issues around religion and spirituality.
Mm-hmm. As I said, namaste. And
Namaste.
assalamu alaikum. And God bless you.
Gesundheit. So, one of the things that's kind of, I think, going to be interesting about this, Rodney, you and I feel like we have a lot in common about our views. But sometimes it's fun to pick a topic where we're more different, and we did this with an episode on race, and this one, I think we do have some more distinct, different views about religion and the ways that we kind of came to those will be interesting to explore, I think.
Yes. Well, yes, I think we've talked about this a couple of times. I was raised Catholic. And right off the bat, that is kind of interesting or, somewhat unique for an African American to be Catholic, because it was so much a part of assimilation in the 50s and 60s, where blacks in this country decided to become Catholic to assimilate. And so I was raised Catholic, and you were raised Jewish, right? Or you are Jewish, but you are culturally Jewish and ethnically Jewish, but not spiritually. Is that the deal?
That would be an accurate description. Yes, I am Jewish by identity and by culture, but not by religion. Yes.
Yes. And I would also say, starting off this show, it's a very tricky thing to talk about religion because of that religion is not always spiritual, and spirituality is not always religious. I think the definition of religion is to relink, if I remember correctly. I just saw that the other day. It seems like an odd definition. I've always thought it was something else other than that, but and I'm not quite sure how that came about, but something it is the definition of it in Latin. I was very, very moved by the teachings that I heard in church. I remember one of the most impactful Easter seasons. I think I might have been about 7 or 8. And of course, there's a movie involved. That's always got to be a movie or a song. And I saw the Cecil B. DeMille's version, the silent version of The Greatest Story Ever Told, which to me, the experience of seeing that film in black and white in my parents' living room still seems so larger than any other movie I've ever seen in my life. I mean, larger than the first Star Wars movie, larger than the first time I saw Jaws. It just looms so big. Even though I was watching it on a little TV, I remember when it got to the end and Jesus was on the cross, that whole scene, I wept as a little kid. I think it was my first understanding of what Jesus did on the cross and how he forgave those who crucified him. And it really did shape my sense of social justice and right and wrong. And at the same time, though, being raised Catholic, I always felt that there was a disconnect between the teachings of Jesus, or the actions of Jesus, which is even more accurate, and what I was learning in school. being because I did do a year, and I say it as it's like a prison sentence. I did do a year at Catholic school, and it did feel a little bit like a prison sentence because I would get sent to the office not for being bad, but for asking questions. I tell this story all the time because I think it's amusing and funny, but I would sit in class, and I remember very distinctly raising my hand and saying to the teacher, was a lay teacher, meaning that it wasn't a nun, but it was who was doing the religious studies. And I said, so Jesus died on the cross, and then on the third day rose. The first person he comes to is Mary, and not Mary the mother, but Mary Magdalene. And he said, go forth and tell them I had risen. And my question from my little 8-year-old brain was, well, if she's the first person that he came to, why isn't she an apostle? And then I got sent to the office. And that was the beginning of my leaving the Catholic Church. One of the other things I would argue was, why did I have to wear a tie when Jesus wore a dashiki? At least that's what it looked like to me in my African-American 9, 7, 8, 9-year-old brain, that he was wearing a dashiki, which I thought was really cool. Like, right on, Jesus. And it was, and you know, it was a strange kid in that, I guess between 9 and 13, I had a shrine in my bedroom along with my Beatles posters. Like, it was like next to my bed. I had created this birth of Christ and the death of Christ out of clay. I had made this, and it sat next to my bed, and above it were the pictures of the 4 Beatles. And behind me, I had the Bible, which I would read. Back then, I would read a lot. And I think it was around 12 that I told my mom I wasn't going back to church, and I was going to explore other religions, which was devastating to her. So that was the beginning of it. And as I started looking around, I was immediately fascinated by Judaism, because for the simple reason that you could ask questions, which I loved. You could debate and ask questions, because it was kind of frowned upon in the Catholic religion. I felt like then, from that point until very, very recently, I was questing. I was looking for a home, a new spiritual home. And I often think that I substituted rock and roll for my was my religion for a while, in that it felt as mysterious or as connected to the source, or I should say maybe art and creativity. They feel as connected to the source and as close to God when you are really in that zone of being creative as you can get when you are in deep meditation or in deep prayer, or any of the other practices that sort of get us out of our head and into wholeness. So that quest led me to becoming a member of a UU church, which kind of makes sense because it is like it. I don't know. It's a combination of ritual. You can choose. Each person has their own spirituality, and it's really about having a group of people who are, I guess, like-minded in that they want to be with a group of people to celebrate their faith. But it's not dogmatic. There is no doctrine that is forced fed to you. And one of the songs that we play is "Let the Mystery Be," and so there's not necessarily looking for answers, but the thing I love is that the Spirit is alive now. One of the things that always kind of drove me crazy about a lot of the religions is that they all seem to be backward looking. And I don't mean that to be negative, but they always seem to be that God was around 2,000 years ago. Where is he today? And where are the miracles of today? And where's the messengers of today? And why don't we have any? Well, we do. It's sort of like the question we set out to answer. Where are the political songs of the day? They're here. You just have to pay attention to them. And I think that God is still the Spirit, God, Gaia, Mother Earth, whatever you believe, is still speaking to us. We just don't listen in the same way. So And I guess that leads me to the first two songs. I mean, unless you have a question or comment, David.
No, I think that's good. One thing I was thinking maybe we should just say, in case I'm guessing most people listening to this will know what you mean by UU, but we might want to just mention that that stands for Unitarian Universalist.
Yeah, Unitarian Universalist, yes. That is what it stands for. And one of the things I love about Unitarian Universalist churches is that it almost seems like no two are alike.
Right. Well, that's kind of the nature of decentralized kinds of, religious institutions. Quakers can be like that too. If you don't have kind of a hierarchy like the Catholic Church has, then each individual congregation can be more or less, Christian, more or less religious, more or less sort of formal. There's a lot of different variations, right?
Yes. And there are many variations. And what was interesting to me when I went to see the Dead Sea Scrolls is how those variations played out a long time ago in Judaism and Christianity, in the early days of Christianity, and how things were not drastically different, but very different, literally 50 miles away from each other. Like this particular grouping of Jewish people had these rituals, and you went 50 miles away and there were different rituals for some of the same things. And I found that really interesting in the Dead Sea Scroll exhibit, because it is kind of what it seems like culture and religion sort of get tied together, and sometimes the things that we think are from God are actually just practices. I mean, if God was giving us a message now, it would be stay out of the wet market
and wash your hands
and
don't touch your face.
Yeah, don't touch your face. Don't eat bats. Those would be probably, if someone was making the New Testament out of this pandemic, that would be our testament for with rules for us to follow. There would be some of those things written in there, I believe, because it is always amazing to me how some things are just justified in the teaching. One of the things that I've right off the bat is slavery. And I, again, looking at the Dead Sea Scrolls, I was so surprised how the God of the Old Testament is very accepting that there are slaves.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I've seen actually a meme that has that, like God had the option of outlawing shellfish or slavery. He went with shellfish, go figure.
Yeah, it's like, huh? So there's always a man's interpretation, and yeah, one of my dreams before I leave this planet is I want, I'm also a filmmaker, and one narrative film I want to make. There's a couple of narrative films. I mostly make documentaries, as but maybe people out there don't know. But one of the films I'd love to make is about the Nicene Council and the creation of the Bible, because from what I've read and understood about it, it was such political decisions, and some of the research I've done and religious leaders I've talked to have actually answered my question that I raised earlier. Mary was an apostle and did have a church, and did write down her experiences of Jesus. They just weren't included in the Bible. Very curious, I find. But again, as we get to, our show is about music, so the two songs I wanted to start with were, I think, kind of sum up my relationship to spirituality and religion. The first one's going to be Prince, and there's so many Prince songs that we could pick from. I always felt that he, as a person, represented the struggle between the dark and the light, and I think he, more than any other pop artist, was able to somehow get that out in a pop way. I mean, U2 is another one of my favorite bands, and they are I always think of them as one of the secret Christian bands, because they are a Christian band, and if you ask them, they will say that, but they don't announce it. They don't come on stage with crosses and and talking about Jesus. But
some of their songs are pretty obvious, though.
yeah, some of them are pretty.
Gloria, for instance.
Yes.
Could be about a girl, but you know.
I don't think so with the Latin part in the middle.
Right.
But Prince makes it pretty obvious, and he does kind of look at the battle between the dark and the light. He's constantly he's allowing himself to be the human that is in between the two and really in that struggle. And the other song I picked is Tori Amos's God. I think that her sentiment is in the song. There's a couple different ways that you could interpret it, but you know, with the chorus, sometimes you just don't come through. I think it speaks to the fact that we think God is with us when good things happen, and when bad things happen, the goal is just to get us through those bad things. But maybe the bad things and the good things are neither. Maybe they just happen, and we put all this judgment and meaning making on them. I remember sitting on a beach in Costa Rica years ago, and I was reading a book of essays from Camille Paglia, and I was listening to Nine Inch Nails. Really, I'm very strange. And there was this terrible, horrible storm the night before. I mean, pretty violent thunderstorm. And then the next day was just serene. And for about 4 hours, I sat on the beach, and I was the only person on the beach for as far as I could see in either direction. And there were trees that were destroyed and some birds that had died from the nests being blown out of the trees and everything. But it was, because it was a pretty violent storm the night before, and that day was just beautiful. And I kept asking myself the question, do the birds and the trees think the storm was bad? Did the ocean or the fishes think the storm was bad? Things died, but now there was this beautiful, just absolutely perfect day. So why is one good and one bad? They both happened, and they both apparently are created by our Creator. So maybe our challenge is just to accept that we are in that constant swinging of the good and the bad. So, or the dark and the light. I like that description a little better. And so without any further ado, here is Prince with The Cross.
Black day, stormy night. No love, no hope in sight. Don't cry, he is coming. Don't die without knowing the cross. Ghettos to the left of us, flowers to the right. There'll be bread for all of us if we can just bear the cross. Sweet song of salvation, a pregnant mother sings. She lives in starvation.
God, sometimes you just don't come through. You need a woman to look after you. God, sometimes you just don't come through. You made pretty daisies, pretty daisies. I gotta find what you're doing about things here. Feel which is burning, gets a little toasty. What do you know? Gotta find why you always go when the wind blows. God, sometimes you just don't come through. God, sometimes you just don't come through. You need a woman to look after you. God, sometimes you just don't come through. Well, tell me you're crazy, maybe then I'll understand. You got your 999 in the backseat, just in case. Oh, hey, you gon' solve, well, baby, you love your new phone. Hey, what do you know? I gotta find why you always go when the wind blows. Keep not thy strength unto the Lord, nor thy ways Will you even tell her if you decide to make the sky fall? Will you even tell her if you decide to make the sky? God, sometimes you just don't come through. God, sometimes you just don't come through. Do you need a woman to look after you? God, sometimes you just don't come through. Do you need a woman to look after you? God, sometimes you just don't come through.
Yeah, God, sometimes you don't come through. So it does look like Tori did have I can't see if her father was a minister, but she did have a very Christian upbringing, and was introduced to other faiths and religions, or a more what does it say here? A pantheistic spiritual alternative by her maternal grandfather. And there is much debate about the meaning of religion, but it does mean to bind back or bind together. That is, if you follow the literal Latin meaning. But there are many arguments out there that the meaning of religion is more changed when it started being used in relation to spirituality. But like many things in religion, there are many people arguing about it.
Yeah. Well, I guess my perspective on that is religion, spirituality, belief are identities that are defined by each individual. And so it always feels to me like if you say you are Christian, if you say you are Jewish, if you say you are Buddhist, et cetera, that's your prerogative. You know, I never feel like it's okay for people to say, well, you're not really what you say you are, because that really is up to the individual, in my opinion. And also in terms of people sort of excommunicating people because they do things that they think aren't Christian or whatever. I think that that's also not really fair. I think you could say you're not following the teachings as I see them. That could be fair. But and I actually look at this sort of the opposite of some people. I think the problem with being able to excommunicate people, like by saying, say, Trump is, not really a Christian because of the things he does, is it's a whitewashing of the religion, because that makes the religion equated with goodness. Mm-hmm. And then you're basically saying everything that's been done in the name of a religion, like witch burnings, like crusades, like holy wars, all those things weren't really done by that religion. And that makes it too convenient. Most people don't have that luxury, that privilege of being able to sort of say, well, we're just going to say my group is always good because anything that my group does that's bad, it wasn't really part of my group anyway. Or
you could take the attitude like that person you just mentioned says, if I do it, therefore it must be good.
Right. Well, there's that too. Yeah. So this sort of brings to some of my formation of my beliefs and stuff. So as we mentioned before, I come from a Jewish background, and I do consider myself to be Jewish, but I also consider Jewishness to be, defined by, again, individuals. So if you feel like you're Jewish and that means you're part of the Jewish culture or ethnicity, then, that doesn't require that you have a specific faith. And there are certainly people who are Jewish who do, but there are many people who identify as Jewish who are secular, and I'm one of those people. And I've always been secular. I don't remember ever having any religious beliefs or feelings. I remember as a child, I didn't really know what religion was. My parents had kind of an unusual amount of restraint in not teaching me, or even, I think, telling me what they believed. I remember, I think it first came up when people started telling me that I was going to burn in hell because I didn't even know what they were talking about. And so that seemed extremely unfair to my little kid mind. I mean, I hear people are making this sort of threatening talk and talking about things that gave me nightmares. And I was like, I don't even understand what you're saying, So, so it felt, like I said, very unfair to kind of be punished in that way for something out of just ignorance. And when I would come to my parents and say, what are these people saying? They're saying I believe in this thing called God, and that means I'm going to be punished. And they would say, well, some people believe that and some people don't. They were very restrained about it. They didn't really tell me, anything about it. So when I did learn a little bit more about what people were talking about, I remember at one point sort of trying to believe in God because I thought it sounded easier. It sounded kind of like people talked about comfort and that sort of stuff. And so I remember trying, and I just couldn't. It just wasn't in me. It didn't feel real to me. And I'm not putting anybody else's beliefs down in that, although I know from experience that many people feel very threatened by unbelievers, as some people would call me, because I think it somehow, especially because I'm a very moral person. I think a lot about right and wrong. That's a lot of my political sense. And so if people know me and they know that I'm a very moral person, and then they find out that I don't believe in God, that is particularly threatening to some people because they want to equate believing in God with being a moral person. And so somehow I am threatening that. And so I often find people try to put me in their box and say, well, David, you're really actually a spiritual person, or you're actually a religious person. And sort of like, I think you mentioned this, for a while, Rodney, you said, rock and roll was your religion. And there have people who said that to me, have said, oh, the Beatles are your religion, or music is your religion. I'm like, no, I really don't have one. That may make you feel good to, put me in that because it makes it feel like I'm the same as you. But I really don't. I don't look at it that way. I don't feel any sense of spiritual or religious belief, and I'm sorry if that makes people uncomfortable, but that's who I am, literally.
Yeah. Well, when I said rock and roll is my religion, I think it was it set forth a set of practices that I did every day that came out of a belief in the music.
Mm-hmm.
And that's actually a question I had for you. You said you're not spiritual. That's fine. I get that. But did you have cultural practices? Because part of what makes something religious is the practice of doing it over and over again. It's not just the belief, but putting that belief into action. So, and not necessarily like, did you celebrate, or did you, let's celebrate, because I always find that weird, celebrate Passover. It's kind of an odd thing, but did you observe Passover, or did you observe any of the other Jewish holidays that kind of, it's like, having spent a lot of time with people who are Jewish and who are also either religious or just culturally, it's kind of weird because it meshes together.
Right.
The cultural and the spiritual and the religious kind of mesh together, or not. Do you find that?
Right. Well, so for me, in my family, we have done. I almost don't like to even use the word observed because it feels like somehow following a rule. But we have. I'll use celebrated. We have celebrated things like Passover, but we've always done them very much in our own way. Mm-hmm. And actually, holidays like Passover, it's a very decentralized holiday. It doesn't take place in a house of worship. It takes place around your own table with, family or close friends or both. And what you use for the ceremony is a Haggadah, but we write our own Haggadahs, which don't have any religion in them. So we tell the story that's told, but we don't. And within the story, we sometimes do include some references to religious things, but it's as a story. But even when we can, we often pull out what we find to be the most meaningful parts of the story. And in that story, the focus in our mind is freedom. And we make it fairly political. Sometimes we make it very funny. We've done versions where it's been Star Wars with Darth Pharaoh and Moses Skywalker. We've done versions where it was Harry Potter, So, and that sort of brings up that whole Joseph Campbell thing of these archetypes of the stories that overlap. But I should also just say, backing up a little bit to my family upbringing. So, a lot of people who believe the kinds of things I do are making a break with the past, making a break with their family who were religious. And one thing that's a little bit unusual in my family is that you have to go back to my great and sometimes my great-great-grandparents to find people who were religious. So it's a fairly long history of people who were secular Jews in my family, and that is relatively unusual when I talk to my friends who are also secular Jews. Usually, they either broke from their parents or at least their parents broke from their parents. But just the fact that goes back a ways doesn't mean that we don't each have to think about it, because the thing is, this country is a very religious country in a lot of ways, and it can feel very alienating, to be secular in this country, I think. And so, just like I think if you're any other kind of minority, you don't have the luxury of being unaware of your status as a minority. Yeah. It's like white people don't have to think about what it means to be black, but there's no person of color who can avoid thinking about it, right? At least for their whole life. And I think that's true of atheists too, that, lots of people can be religious and sort of think everybody believes the same thing as they do. If you're an atheist, you pretty much are forced to have to think about it and evaluate it and be confronted with other systems. And I think that's actually a good thing, but it's not always an easy thing. So that the fact that my family is generations of secular people doesn't necessarily make it an sort of just following a tradition. I think we still have to wrestle with what we believe in a conscious way. And like I said, I think that's actually a good thing. Mm-hmm. But it's interesting, I think, in terms of music. So as I was growing up, I don't think I really heard much music that specifically spoke to me about how I identified. And it's more recently, I think maybe starting when I was a teenager, and I heard, some of the things that Jethro Tull was doing and Emerson Lake and Palmer that were very critical or questioning of traditional religious ideas and things, that I started to be like, oh wow, there are people who are actually writing songs about what I think. Mm-hmm. But like I said, I think more recently I've discovered some things that are really thought-provoking and interesting approaches to some of these topics that come from a perspective similar to mine. So the ones I was thinking of playing, there's a very funny guy, Tim Minchin, who some of you may have heard. His song F Sharp was one of the first ones I think that got famous. It was more of a musical joke, and he wrote the music for shows like Matilda. But this is a live version of his song Thank You God, which is what you'll see is fairly self-explanatory. It's a little introduction to it. And then we'll also hear something from Jenny Lewis, who has written a number of songs that are on my wavelength, I think. And that song's going to be The Big Guns.
Mm-hmm.
She had her church. Sam and his mum went to an evangelical church in Dandenong, just south of Melbourne there. And she went there that Sunday, and the entire congregation prayed for his mum. And the next Tuesday, she went to the doctor, and her eye was completely healed, as if nothing had ever been wrong. And I had asked for evidence, and this was the first time I'd ever had a first-person account of a miracle. So it really had an impact on me, and I went home and wrote this song. I have an apology to make. I'm afraid I've made a big mistake. I turned my face away from you, Lord. I was too blind to see the light. I was too weak to feel your might. I closed my eyes, I couldn't see the truth, Lord. But then like Saul on the Damascus road, you sent a messenger to me, and so now I've had the truth revealed to me. Please forgive me all those things I said. I no longer betray you, Lord. I will pray to you instead, and I will say thank you, thank you, thank you, God. Thank you, thank you, thank you, God. Thank you, God, for fixing the cataracts of Sam's mum. I had no idea, but it's suddenly so clear now. I feel such a cynic, how could I have been so dumb? Thank you for displaying how praying works, a particular prayer in a particular church. Thank you, Sam, for the chance to acknowledge this omnipotent ophthalmologist. Thank you, God, for fixing the cataracts of Sam's mum. I didn't realize that it was so simple, but you've shown a great example of just how it can be done. You only need to pray in a particular spot to a particular version of a particular God, and if you pull that off without a hitch, he will fix one eye of one middle-class white bitch. I know in the past my outlook has been limited. I couldn't see examples of where life had been definitive, but I can admit it when the evidence is clear as Sam's mom's new cornea. Extremely clear. Thank you, God, for fixing the cataracts of Sam's mum. I have to admit that in the past I have been skeptical, but Sam described this miracle and I am overcome. How fitting that the sighting of a sight-based intervention should open my eyes to this exciting new dimension. It's like someone put an eye chart up in front of me and the top 5 letters say ICGOD. Thank you, Sam, for showing how my point of view has been so flawed. I assumed there was no God at all, but now I see that's cynical. It's simply that his interests aren't particularly broad. He's largely undiverted by the starving masses or the inequality between the various classes. He gives out strictly limited passes, redeemable for surgery or 2-for-1 glasses. I feel so shocking for historically mocking you. Your interests are clearly confined to the ocular. I bet given the chance, you just chew the divine and start a little business selling contacts online. Fuck me, Sam, what are the odds that of history's endless parade of gods, that the God who just happened to be taught to believe in is the actual one? And he digs on healing, but not the AIDS-ridden African nations, nor the victims of the plague, nor the flood-addled Asians, but healthy, privately insured Australians with common incurable corneal degeneration. This story of Sam's has but a single explanation, a surgical God who digs on magic operations. No, it couldn't be mistaken attribution of causation, born of a coincidental temporal correlation, exacerbated by a general lack of education, vis-a-vis physics in Sam's parish congregation. And it couldn't be that all these pious people are liars. Couldn't be an artifact of confirmation bias, a product of groupthink, a mass delusion, an emperor's new clothes style fear of exclusion. No, it's more likely to be an all-powerful magician than the misdiagnosis of the initial condition, or one of many cases of spontaneous remission, or a record-keeping glitch by the local physician. No, the only explanation for Sam's mum's scene, they prayed to an all-knowing super being, to the omnipresent master of the universe, and he quite liked the sound of their muttered verse. So for a bit of a change from his usual stunt of being a sexist, racist, murderous cunt, he popped down to Dandenong and just like that used his powers to heal the cataracts of Sam's mum. Of Sam's mum. Thank you, God, for fixing the cataracts of Sam's mum. I didn't realize that it was such a simple thing. I feel such a ding-a-ling, what ignorant scum. Now I understand how prayer can work. A particular prayer in a particular church, in a particular style, with a particular stuff, and for particular problems that aren't particularly tough, and for particular people, preferably white, and for particular senses, preferably sight. A particular prayer in a particular spot, to a particular version of a particular God. And if you get that right, he just might take a break from giving babies malaria and pop down to your local area to fix the cataracts of your mum.
Well, you praise him, then you thank him, till you reach the by and by. And I've won hundreds at the track, but I'm not betting on the afterlife. Then you kiss his lips, he forgives you for it, he forgives you for all you've done. But not me, I'm still angry. What have I done? Why am I always messing with? The big guns. First I'll build a sword, get some words to explain. It's a plan, brother, at least. And I'll pretend that everybody here wants peace. Have mercy, have mercy, have mercy on me. 'Cause we're tired and lonely and we're bloody. What have we done? Why are we still running from our own feeling bodies? The big guns, the big guns. Sing mercy, sing mercy, sing mercy on me. Let's pretend that everybody here wants peace. What have we done? Why are we still chasing our own tails? The big guns, the big guns, the big guns.
So if that voice sounded familiar, that's because Jenny Lewis was the lead singer of Rilo Kiley. And that was Jenny Lewis and the Watson twins doing the big guns.
Very cool.
Yeah. So, you know, the thing I think a lot of times these songs that are critical or satirical about religion, you know, they're often really going after the fundamentalist orthodox side of religion,
Mhm.
where people are just so sure that they know
Yeah.
exactly what this omnipotent being, wants and expects of them. And, I think it's pretty easy for a lot of people who are on the whole spectrum of being in more politically progressive religions to agnostics and atheists like myself, to feel like, a lot of us can agree that idea of being sure what is right is, has problems with it. And there are people who would accuse people of me of being like that because they would say, well, you're sure there is no God. But that's not exactly what I would say. I would just say I'm a very rational kind of proof-based person. And so I don't have any reason in my mind to believe supernatural things because I don't see any evidence of that. And, other people, that's not the way that they need. I think faith is, I know there's a lot of people who want to use sort of facts and proof and stuff to back up religion, but, it seems to me like faith and fact are two different things, and you can have faith in things. Part of the idea of faith is not needing evidence. It's a belief. It's a and you don't have to be rock solid in your faith. You could believe it's worth questioning and everything. But I don't know. Maybe you have a different feeling about that. Right?
Well, I think the challenge of what you're saying is the difference between faith and religion. I think they're separate. I think, and also your own sense of spirituality and religion. And why I'm making a distinction is, I have personal experiences of something that I can't explain. The story that I tell often of an example of this is I spent a month in Costa Rica as a reporter for Radio for Peace, and I lived in this little town called Ciudad Colón. It couldn't have been more than 200 people in the town, and a few expats, American expats, who worked at the radio station, and everybody else was Costa Rican and did not speak English. The night of Easter, of Good Friday, I had spent the day wandering through the rainforest to get up the side of the mountain to the station, and that was in itself pretty spiritual. I'm a suburban kid from outside of Philadelphia, and I was in my mid to late 20s, and this is the first time I was ever by myself walking through what felt to me like the end of the world, like the edges of the world, where it was just me, my little canteen, and all these animals that were following me around. And it was pretty emotional. Later that evening, there was a processional to the church, and in the whole town, the entire town was going through the street with the cross and Mary and doing the procession, and they were singing in unison. I mean, there might have been some harmony if you want to get technical, but they were singing together. And I was standing there in front of the church watching all this go down, and part of me was my cynical space, like, all right, what's this all about? Everybody's walking around here, and okay, what's going on? Okay, this looks like yeah, okay. And then it hit me, this wave of something that I cannot put words to, that I cannot explain, that I cannot make anyone understand, but I started weeping. This sense of the Spirit came over me, or something. Again, I don't know what to call it, and this is where I think I differ from the kind of people you're talking about. This is my anecdotal story of sensing something otherworldly. Scientifically, I think maybe it's just the amount of energy that we humans can have when we all focus on one thing. I have come close to feeling that sort of sensation when I've been on stage in front of, 10,000 or 20,000 people when I used to have my band and we played festivals. I mean, sort of like that, where everybody was focused on me, but it's not quite the same. More so, it was this otherworldly thing that I cannot explain. And I've also felt it when I've gone to the whenever I go out to LA, I go to the Agape Church where Michael Beckwith is. And if you know Michael Beckwith, he's the minister in he's highlighted in The Secret. And again, I want to really say I'm also a guy who's really big into science, and I can be immensely skeptical of all this stuff. But I am one of the things that Michael Beckwith believes from his study of metaphysics is that, and they do this at the Agape Church, is they hold the space around the church during the ceremony. And I've been there with a number of people who are equally skeptical. And I've been at the service, and the music will start playing and the thing will start happening. And there is this wave of energy or just goodness that I cannot put into words, that just is there, and I begin to weep.
Well, one thing that I would just say is that, it isn't that I never experience things that I don't have an explanation for, but I would never tend to, and this does not in any way lessen the fact that other people, including you, do, but I would never associate those feelings with anything spiritual or supernatural or religious or, any of those things. That's just not where I go with it, so I could be overcome with emotion, and I often am, thankfully, but I don't ever associate that with anything that has any of these ideas with it, so, and I know a lot of people do, and part of the idea too, I think for some people, religion is a way of explaining the things that they can't explain. And for other people, it's like that phrase that you used before that's in a song, let the mystery be. So those are two very different impulses that are both, I would say, under the umbrella of religious, thinking. But, I guess it comes back to that whole idea of that we haven't really explored yet, but that religion or any kind of belief or lack of belief, it can be used for good or evil, so there's some of my heroes, Gandhi and Martin Luther King, were clearly deeply religious human beings who were motivated to do a lot of the things that I think of them as heroes for by their religious faith. And there are plenty of people, and we've talked a little bit, in passing about, the burning witches and crusades and, all those kinds of things where people have used religion for really horrible purposes. And there have been atheists like Joseph Stalin who did horrible things. And there's plenty of atheists who've done wonderful and moral things, So I think, there are people who want to make it like it's a connection between either religion or a lack of religion that makes you good or makes you evil. And I think that clearly empirically is not true from the way I see it, and I hope that most people have come to that on their own to realize that, that those two things are not linked.
Well, what I was going to, yes, I agree with what you're saying. What I was going to get at with the separation between faith and religion is like you said, you've had experiences, and instead of trying to understand what or make some connection to them, I've had personal experience like the ones I've explained, and many others. But I think where it falls apart or where it becomes challenging is when you try and codify them into a set of rules so that everyone can follow. And I personally think, again, this is where it gets tricky because I have my own understanding of it from reading the Bible and all this sort of stuff. I think the goal is not, or the idea is to try and live like Jesus, not worship Jesus. And that really upsets a lot of people because there's so much in the Bible about worship. But I don't know. I kind of feel like if you're God or Jesus or, Gaia or the source, why do you need worship? What is that a lot like? Why would that it seems like such a human thing. Like humans want to feel adored and loved and worshipped. If I'm truly I mean, if we are in God's image, the most amazing people I've met are also the most humblest. Like people who've accomplished great. I'm not saying all, but a lot of people who've accomplished a lot, particularly a lot where their growth, they grow personally in a lot of ways. They are so humble.
Mm-hmm.
They're not. They don't brag. They don't walk around. Look at me, I'm the greatest. They're actually like, well, you know, it was just a lot of hard work. You know, that's how I did that, and it wasn't all me. I mean, I had lots of help, and you know, they're just more open. So I think, anyway, getting back to the point, I think that when you try and then make rules, okay, if you follow this set of rules, you will be okay, and you will be good, and this is the worst part of it. You will be rewarded.
Mm-hmm.
Like, why do I need to be rewarded for being good?
Yeah.
Why like I thought just being good was just a good thing to do. Why?
It reminds me of something I saw recently, actually, that was supposed to be a quote from an Orthodox rabbi, and one of his students was asking, "Why did God create atheists?" and the rabbi said, apparently, well, you know, when you or I do something that's good, we're doing it because God told us to, or we're doing it, you know, for those rewards, or we're doing it because we think that it will please God. When an atheist does something good, they're just doing it because it's good, because they don't have that other reason. So I thought that was a pretty interesting little anecdote. I don't know if it's true, but
something for
yeah. But I, like, again, like what I said before, even though I'm coming from that secular perspective, I do think that there are plenty of people who are very deeply religious people who are not operating on a rewards and punishments level of morality. They are doing things that are right because they are right. And they may feel religion as a source of strength and inspiration for them, but that isn't the sole reason that they're, you know, so I'm not denigrating the morality of anybody. You know, I think it's important to recognize, and it's so complex. You know, there's so many different people who do it and believe in so many different ways. And, you know, and it's really interesting. Well, I think, you know, we had this opportunity to interview Eric Bazilian of the Hooters, and who's written a number of really wonderful songs. And one of those songs is the song "One of Us." Many people have heard it, especially from Joan Osborne. And Eric's actually in Sweden at the moment. And but we managed through technology to do a little interview with him. So why don't we move into that next, if that's okay?
That's awesome.
One of the first songs both of us thought of including was your song, One of Us. So it's really great to have a chance to chat with you in this way and ask you some questions about that. So
how did One of Us come into being?
I had met a young woman from Sweden who had just moved over to Philadelphia to be with me. And within a week, she asked me how to show her how I make a song on my 4-track cassette recorder. And I'd been playing that guitar riff for a couple of days, so I made a little, what the kids would call a beat now. I had a keyboard with drum sounds and keyboard sounds and a bass sampler, and I made a little track, and she said, sing it, and I put the microphone in record, and that's literally what came out. It just was one of those moments. I remember the feeling. I just felt like I was in free fall. It was kind of scary, and I didn't know what the next word was going to be. And then when it came to the chorus, I just had this thing in the back of my neck sticking up. And then I was actually stuck for the last line in the chorus. And Sarah, who's my wife now of 25 years this August, she woke up and said, trying to get home, trying to make his way home. So it was really, it did sort of write itself, and you know, the serendipity of it is kind of scary.
Wow. Do you feel like you were connected to the source in that moment? When I'm teaching young songwriters to write, I always talk about connecting to the source or being in the moment or being present. Do you feel like that there was you were completely in the moment? And
I was completely in the moment. I usually am when I'm writing songs. I do get there. Not every song is that song, but when I'm really in it, not thinking. It's totally being present and totally letting. Yeah, it's a total connection to the source. And I learn a lot about myself when I write songs. You know, even writing that one, that was sort of my entire worldview right there. You know, to me, the song, right after it came out, it emerged. I thought about it, and what was I actually trying to say here? And to me, it wasn't really about God. It was more about the schmuck on the bus trying to get home. But even more than that, I think my thought process was, what happens if you are confronted with something that completely blows your worldview out of the water? What if you were to see irrefutable proof of a higher power? If you were to meet an extraterrestrial, if you found out this was all the Matrix, what happens then?
Something that just changes everything. Yeah.
Yeah. What would you ask if you had just one question? I mean, that's a big thing. Like what if that big face did appear in the sky and said, okay, what do you want to know? You get one. Like the genie giving, with one wish. Mm-hmm. No, you get three from the genie. I think God would just give you one.
Yeah.
So you better make it a good one.
Were you in on the production of the song when Joan Osborne was doing it?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. I mean, Rob and I were the band on that album. We were part of the production team from beginning to end. And we'd already written a bunch of the album. We were about to go into the studio to make the record. And literally 12 hours after I wrote the song late at night. We were back in our daily session, 4 of us in the room. It was me, Joan, Rob, and Rick Chertoff, who was the producer. And I played my demo, and my demo doesn't sound, well, the instrumentation sounds like the Joan record. It's the same guitar riff, and it's my fingers. But I sang it in a basso profundo, like Brad Roberts from the Crash Test Dummies.
Oh.
That was my inspiration. That was the voice in my head.
Oh, wow.
In fact, I actually recorded him singing the song. There was some real wish fulfillment there.
Oh, wow.
Cool.
But I played my demo for them, and I knew that it was a special song. It didn't occur to me that Joan would sing it. But after it was over, as soon as it was done, Rick looked up and said, "Joan, do you think you could sing that?" She said, "I can sing the phone book." Yeah, write out the lyrics. So she did, and that we all just looked around the room, and we knew we had lightning in a bottle. That voice and that song was, was beyond.
Wow. How did it feel when you found out that Prince covered the song?
Oh, that was I found out about a year before the record came out, because a fan in Japan sent me a cassette with 2 live recordings of him at the Budokan doing that. And it's funny because one of the nights during the long intro before the little guitar solo bit comes in, he says, "This next song is written by Joan Osborne. I love this song. Sing along, won't you?"
Don't you love it when they get the credits wrong?
Well, at least they spelled my name right on the album. So that was, I mean, come on, to have Prince do your song. Prince did very few covers in his career.
What have you heard of other churches using your song? I mean, one of the things that was striking to me, I was earlier today, I was talking to a client of mine who is a devout Christian, like just very, very religious. And when we were talking about the song, and he loves the song. And I've talked to Buddhists, and as I said, we played at our UU church. It seems like it's such a universal song that it can speak to. I mean, whether you're atheist or a deep, deep spiritual person, the song speaks to you.
Yeah, there's nothing anyone can get mad at. The only thing that anyone ever took issue with was back in when the first song was really happening. When we went to the Grammys, there were protesters from the Catholic League, which has nothing to do with the Catholic Church. It's a political organization. But I remember they actually, one of the guy actually managed to get 5 minutes on TV where they interviewed him about it, and he said, "Well, she mixes religion and spirituality with sexuality, and well, it raises questions. Questions. And then the only other blowback I've gotten is the word Slav. Like you call my God Slav. No, idiot. If you speak English, just a Slav like one of us. Not a Slav like God, a Slav like one of us. So,
yeah.
But it still does bring God down to a personal human level, and I'm for sure for some people who are on the fundamentalist side of things that they probably do get their backs up on about that. I'm surprised you haven't gotten more blowback on that, actually.
I guess, but listen, there are a lot of fundamentalist Christians who love to claim me as one of theirs.
Uh-huh. Well, that's another way to deal with it. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, you were writing about Jesus. God sent his only begotten Son to earth to be one of us. And if that's the way you think it went down, that's great.
Yeah. Well, and when you brought up the idea, though, of questioning, that makes you question things, that's another thing some people have a lot of trouble with. Because for some people, this is not about questioning. It's about, rock solid faith that is unshakable. And I think your song is all about questions, and it's posed as questions. So I could imagine that would also be threatening to some people.
Actually, the whole song is one question. It's one sentence. Right. There's no punctuation in it. It's a run-on sentence. But yeah, the one thing that I really like about my really Orthodox Jewish friends, but like I have some Lubavitcher friends. They doubt, they debate, they argue. You put 3 Jews in a room, you get 6 opinions.
Yeah, right.
I love that it is about that. Now, it's fun. I heard a great story. I don't know if this is relevant or not, but it's such a great story from my Lubavitcher friend in Jerusalem. We have this thing about the G word and believing, not believing. And I said to him, I'm like, show me the money guy. I'm reveal thyself. And he told me a story about the Lubavitcher Rebbe when he was alive. He used to go out on Sundays, stand outside in Brooklyn and just meet people. Mm-hmm. And he met this one Jewish guy, and he said to him, you should put on the tefillin. And the guy said to the Rebbe, I don't really believe in God. And the Rebbe said to him, that God you don't believe in, I don't believe in him either. Wow. And to me, that's like a Zen koan. I mean, that's really like, wow. Mm-hmm. Another one of us story. Yeah. There's a children's choir, the Chester Children's Choir.
Yeah, I know them. Yeah.
You know them? John Alston, the director of that. Good friend. They do an amazing version of One of Us.
Mm-hmm. Is it available? Is it the recording available of that?
It's on YouTube.
Yeah.
Okay.
You can find the video, and someone sent it to me, and I was just floored. So I found them on social media, messaged them, and then John contacted me, and we became really good friends. Hung out a lot, and it's interesting. They do the Prince version.
Yeah,
yeah. Just a slave like One of Us.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And that phrasing, which totally makes sense. But I actually got to perform it with them once, which was totally next level.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Cool.
Yeah, they're a great choir.
Oh, so great. And what they do for the community, I met some of the kids. It's wonderful.
Awesome.
Cool. Well, it's very nice talking with both you guys.
Great talking with you too. Thank you.
So one of these nights and about 12 o'clock, this old world's gonna reel and rock. Saints will tremble and cry for pain, for the Lord's gonna come in his heaven airplane.
If you were faced with him and all If seeing meant that you would have to believe in things like heaven and in Jesus and the saints and all the prophets. And yeah, God is great. Yeah, God is good. Yeah. What if God was one of us? Just a slob like one of us. Just a stranger on the bus trying to make his way home. He's trying to make his way home. Back up to heaven all alone. Nobody calling on the phone except for the Pope maybe in Rome. Yeah, God is great. Yeah, God is good. Yeah. What if God was one of us? Just a slob like one of us. Just a stranger on the bus trying to make his way home. Just trying to make his way home. Like a holy rolling stone. Back up to heaven all alone. Just trying to make his way home. Nobody calling on the phone except for the Pope maybe in Rome.
Dear God, hope you got the letter and I pray you can make it better down here. I don't mean a big reduction in the price of beer, but all the people that you made in your image, see them starving on their feet, 'cause they don't get enough to eat from God. Can't believe in you.
Dear God, sorry to disturb you, but I feel that I should be heard loud and clear. We all need a big reduction in amount of tears. don't believe in. I won't believe in heaven, hell, no saints, no sinners, no devils, well, the pearly gates, no thorny crown. You're always letting us humans down. The wars you bring, the babes you drown, those lost at sea and never found. And it's the same the whole world round. The hurt I see helps to compound. The Father, Son, and Holy Ghost. It just so is unholy host. And if you're not there, you perceive that my heart's here upon the sea. But there's one thing I don't believe in.
It's you. Dear
Well, you know, there may be many, many disagreements and arguments about religion and belief, but one thing I think is clear from some of these selections is that these concepts have inspired a lot of great music.
Yes.
And of course, that's gone on for centuries and
Yeah.
centuries, right? Because there's tons and tons of amazing religious music and songs and pieces about religious thought. And yeah,
Bach. Wow. Yes.
so much.
I was thinking of our little conversation earlier when I heard when the guitar break comes in One of Us. It's so Beatley.
Yeah. It's so good too.
It's so good.
It's a really amazing song. And you know, interesting that we did those two in a row. I wasn't even thinking about the fact that the XTC song was produced by Todd Rundgren when we were putting it in order right after another Philly area production.
Yes,
you know, so.
Philly in the house.
That's
Yeah,
right.
because Rick Chardoff is the producer of One of Us, and he's from
Right.
Philly, and they're not that far apart in age, or where they grew up.
Yeah. Well, that XTC song is such a great, mind-blowing thing. That whole ironic concept of "Dear God, I don't believe in you." You know, it's kind of like a
Yeah.
you know?
Well, and that also goes back to what I was saying. I think, you know, like there's people often, some people have said to me, I've had Jehovah's Witness and Mormons say, "Oh, you're one of us." And I'm like, "How am I one of you?" "Well, by your actions, by the things you do. All you need is the faith to believe." I'm like, "Well, why do I need to believe if I'm already doing it? If I'm doing what I'm supposed to do according to your book of rules."
Right.
And the same thing with Christians. People will say, "Oh, you're just like us." I go, "I don't think so, because I don't follow your." I have a certain a sort of different take on it, Dave, than you do. I get what you're saying about you can call yourself what you are, but I look at the I look at, okay, these are the rules that Christianity has set up to be considered a Christian, or being like the different sects of Christianity. To be Catholic, you have to do this, and I can check off most of the boxes, but not all of them. So then I'm not Catholic. Then I mean, I have, and then you go over to Baptist. Okay, these are the rules to be Baptist or Southern Baptist or whatever. I don't check them all off, so I can say I have to say, well, no, I come close, but I'm not like. I'm not like you, because I can't check off.
But once again, you are determining that. But when your example a moment ago of Jehovah's Witnesses saying to you, like claiming you as one of their own, and you say, "Yeah, but I don't feel a part of what you're saying." So, you're, in a way, you're disagreeing with me, but in a way, you're also kind of affirming what I was saying, because I do think that we agree that it should be up to you to identify as you want to, just as with anything, with sexuality, with race, with, how you feel about your identity is a very personal thing. And I really get my back up when people tell me who I am.
Right.
And I know some very well-meaning and loving people who are like, "David, you really are one of us. You really are a spiritual person." I'm like, you can think that if you want, but it's just not true. It's just not really true.
I think this feels like one of those discussions I get in with a certain person in my life who I won't talk about right now, but where it's like, yeah, but the wall is a wall. Like, I don't have to believe the wall is a wall. I guess I don't know what the number would be for me. Where is it 90%? Is it 99.9%? But when there's a consensus about an agreement among a large group of people that this is what we've decided collectively, maybe I wasn't in on the decision, but this is what we're calling this thing, and these are the things that make it that thing. And if I don't feel like I'm just not that thing, then I'm not that thing, and it wouldn't feel right for me to call it that. And I get what you're saying. Like,
well, I can concede that. Like I think like somebody could be deluded and they could say, "Hey, I'm a Muslim. I've never read the Quran, but I'm just gonna call myself a Muslim."
Yeah, right.
That would just be wrong. Okay,
Right.
I maybe made my definition a little too all encompassing, but I guess I just think there is a difference between like empirical evidence about whether a wall is a wall or belief and identity. And I do think that at least for the most part, identity should be chosen.
Yeah.
And,
the wall didn't call it a wall. We called it a wall, and that's what we decided to call. I mean, again, I do want to stress though that it does all go back to stuff we just decided to make up. I mean, like all this stuff is at some point some human sat down with a bunch of other humans and said, "What do you want to call that?" Well, we'll call that Christianity. Okay. Okay. And what are the parameters of that? Because we have to define it in order to call it that. Okay, well, you have to do this thing over here. Oh, okay, that makes sense. All right, fine.
But you can really only say what you're saying from the outside of a religion, because if you're inside it, then that's heresy to say that people made it up, right? Because it all comes from God, according to, you know what I mean? So you're saying that in a very kind of analytical, clinical, outside perspective.
Exactly why I have to say I can't call myself a Christian. See? There you go.
But another thing you said, I think, would be a nice way of leading us to our final two songs, which is that, again, these concepts, these ideas, these beliefs, these identities can lead in very different directions. So they can lead to exclusion, like we are the ones who know the right way, the way God intended, and you are not, and so you're wrong, and so we're going to kill you, or we're going to enslave you, or we're going to conquer you, or whatever. Or they can be used more inclusively to say we are all one people.
Right.
There's room at the table for everyone, for instance. Yeah. So let's hear a couple songs. First from Susan Werner, from her album that's very much about faith and belief, that's called The Gospel Truth, once again recorded right here in our general area. And her song is Why Is Your Heaven So Small? And then I just alluded to the next song, which is that Carrie Newcomer song, Room at the Table.
Excuse me, sir, what did you say? You shout so loud it's hard to tell. You say that I must change my ways, for I am surely bound to hell. Well, I know you'd damn me if you could, but my friend, that's simply not your call. If God is great and God is good, why is your heaven so small? You say you know, you say you've read that holy Bible upon the shelf. Do you recall when Jesus said, judge not lest ye be judged yourself? For I know you'd damn me if you could, but my friend, that's simply not your call. If God is great and God is good,
Why is your heaven so small? With your fists that shake and your eyes that burn, what makes you do these things you do? I would not be surprised to learn someone somewhere excluded you. But my friend, imagine it if you would. A love much mightier than us all. Oh, if God is great and God is good, why is your heaven so small? Let our hearts not be hardened to those living on the margins. There is room at the table for everyone. This is where it all begins. This is how we gather in. There is room at the table for everyone. Too long we have wandered, burdened and undone. But there is room at the table for everyone. Let us sing the new world in. This is how it all begins. There is room at the table
You've been listening to Music for the New Revolution. I'm Rodney Wittenberg.
I'm David Heitler-Clevens.
Music for the New Revolution is produced at Melody Vision Recording Studios in Plymouth Meeting, Pennsylvania. Music for the New Revolution is written and produced by David Heitler-Clevens and Rodney Wittenberg.
And edited and co-produced by Ben Flax.
You can find us at musicforthenewrevolution.com or MFTNR. Like us on Facebook and follow our Spotify playlist.
And our podcasts can be found on SoundCloud and iTunes, and you can also be a patron, a supporter of our podcast on Patreon.
This is Music for the New Revolution.
Spend it all today and we will bill you tomorrow. 3-piece suits and bank accounts in Bahamas. Wall Street crime will never send it to the slammer. Tell all the children in the arms of the mamas. The F-15 is a homicide bomber. TV commercial for a pop-a-pill culture. Drug companies